So I guess we can just do a quick roll call so that in the minutes we can say who's here. I'm Kristen Besega from CEA.
Jen Rodriguez from CEA.
It's hard.
Dr. Rebecca Good from Increasing Educator Diversity Policy Oversight Council.
Catherine Rowe. I'm the chair of education at the Western Connecticut State University, and I'm here representing the 4-5 educator preparation programs by the CSCU, and it was named by AACTE.
Right. And then, Chloe, you said that you're taking minutes for today, right?
Yeah, I'm taking minutes. I'm also recording so that we can upload it on our YouTube channel after the fact. And we'll do the same for the whole certification board as well.
Perfect. I'm not sure for procedure whether for a roll call we include you and John as present, or how does that work?
Well, we can just note that we're here for the record anyway. John Khalil from the CSD, and I'll just note that as I mentioned during the board's first meeting last month, I'm not a member of the board, but am just here in an informational capacity pending appointment of the statutorily identified board administrator.
Chloe Cummings, interim administrator from the CSTE.
Perfect. Yeah, because on ours we list guests also, so you would be our guests. So I did a little work in advance of this meeting because we were given like a set of bylaws that's for the state's Board of Education. And using that as a starting point, we kind of have a few different places where we can kind of like meld the state's Board of Education bylaws into what we need. And obviously, there's a lot of sections of their bylaws that we don't need. We have our mandate through Public Act 2441. So we want to make sure that that language kind of gets mirrored in our bylaws. And we also had the posting for the administrator. I'm not sure if the statutorily identified administrator's role needs to be in our bylaws, but it might be helpful. So for the review and discussion of the bylaws, what I did was I started, give me 2 seconds because I never use Teams. Ooh, it's going to ask for my administrator password. Good luck to us.
As you're doing that, Kristen, the work that you did in advance, this was so super helpful. Color coding and everything. I really appreciated it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I might actually need someone else to do the screen sharing because this is my work computer. I only have a work computer and I am not an administrator on my own computer. So it might not let me share.
I could share.
That would be wonderful. Would you be able to pull up that bylaws draft document?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
There. This is the one, right? Am I sharing it? Is it? I'm not a Teams person either. Okay.
No, we can see it. We should be good. It's very similar to Zoom. The items are just in different spots on the screen. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not allowed to like install new things or change permissions. So my computer's just not letting me share my screen with you guys. Okay, so what I did was I started from the bylaws for the Connecticut State Board of Education. And then where I thought something needed to be changed, I either crossed it out, anything that is related to the Public Act, I put in the number of statute that I thought made sense there. So if we start at the top, maybe what we can do is just go through and check off things that make sense, because those would be quick and easy changes. And since our board as a subcommittee does follow Robert's Rules of Order, to make this go a little faster, I'm proposing that we go look through the changes first, vote to adopt something as a whole. So take one vote, and then have something that we can bring to present on our December 9th meeting. Catherine.
Would it be possible to try to get this a little bit bigger, Rebecca, so that I could see it better?
I dropped a link in the chat to the document directly, if that's helpful to you, and that way you can kind of zoom in if you need to.
Thanks. I'll open another tab and do that. Thanks. A good idea.
All right. So in section 1, our board would have officers, committees, agents, and administrative officers, but would not have its own employees. So I proposed taking that section out. For section 2, I made the substitutions, changing State Board of Education to the name of our certification board, along with the public act from which we get our mandate. The one thing is, you guys can't necessarily see my side comments on this. I just want to double check. John, is the calling it EdSec, is that legit? Can I do that? Does that sound right?
I'm
So
sorry,
where
can you show me where exactly? Because I haven't seen these ahead of time.
Yep.
The
Highlighting.
draft, so.
It's the purple highlighted. So since it's
Oh, EdSec. Yeah, EdSec is fine. Yeah.
okay.
But well, yeah, you could just say, so there would be a couple ways to do this. You could either say, yeah, Public Act Section 10 EdSec, or
Mhm.
Sections 10 EdSec, or you can just say the Public Act number, because everything relevant would be incorporated by reference. So.
Cool. So I think it makes sense to just continue to use the public act number, so we don't have to say like from this section or from that section. What are your thoughts?
I agree.
Cool. So I'm gonna click that. All right. We don't have a commissioner. We don't have a department. We don't have an official secretary. So those all made sense to remove. For bylaws,
Did we want to leave the word section there if we're not going to list the section?
Oh no, you're right. Thank you. There we go. Good catch. Okay, for section 3 amendments, Robert's rules suggests that bylaws amendments are done with 2/3 vote of members. So instead of 7, I put it to 11, because 11 is 2/3 of 16, and we have a 16-member board. If that all looks good, I will hit check and it should incorporate. Cool. Okay. So this is another one where we can remove the section number. But what I did here was I took out the wording from the State Board of Ed and put in the wording from the Public Act that lists the voting board members. So all of this is copied directly from the Public Act. So it lists the 4 school teachers, 3 representatives from educator prep programs, 3 administrators, Cass, CABE, all, I believe all of that text is copied from the Public Act. So also from the Public Act, the officers of the board are only delineated as chairperson and vice chairperson. So with the chairperson, the red is from the Public Act, and it lists like the duties of the chair. And I highlighted this section for me to look at later, because I don't think this is necessary for this board. I don't think we're going to have contested case hearings.
Yeah,
I don't
that was,
think
I
that's
agree,
really.
Kristen. Yeah, in my notes, I also, sorry, am I supposed to do a Robert's Rules thing?
No, you're good. I
Oh,
think
okay.
you'll be Robert's rules once at the
Like,
end.
that was the one part I highlighted. I was like, this board wouldn't have any contested case here, or wouldn't have case hearings.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. So unfortunately, in Google Drive, when you share a document, it doesn't share the comments. So I have this like highlighted with comments for me, and you guys can't see that copy, and I don't know how to make that happen.
okay.
Okay, so we can remove that. Yeah, because you're right. I don't think that is a thing that we're going to be doing. Okay, good. It's the vice chairperson elected from among the voting members. And I figured the vice chairperson has the same role as they would on the State Board of Education. So acting in the absence of the chairperson at any meeting, and then duties as delegated by the chair.
I had one question about the chairperson in this line, shall be the person authorized to speak publicly for the board. That's just like in representation of the board, but we can talk about the work that's being done on the board because that's all public, correct? Am I reading that right? Okay, great.
Yep. And I know we do that for like, we have a line like that in my local union's bylaws where it says like the president can speak on behalf of the association. So like one of our building reps might be able to say that they have done X, Y, and Z, but I'm the only one that could like speak to the press and say like,
Perfect.
you know, the association does this, this, this.
Great.
John, do you have anything to add on that one? Just because I've seen only like 2 other examples of bylaws.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of adding things, this is where, I have to be a bit careful because, as I mentioned at the last meeting, again, since I'm not the board's attorney, I'm not supposed to give legal advice or counsel. I can be here for informational purposes. Like you had asked a question about how to write the statute. That's or a section number. That's something, and I can certainly tell you, whether something has legal effect, doesn't have legal effect, etc. But I really, again, since I'm not a member of the board and since I'm not the board's counsel, all of these decisions about how you folks want to make the board, or make the bylaws in this case, it's really up to you. And if there's something that you need clarified or something along those lines, I'm happy to help. But I have to be a little bit careful in this context.
Fair. I think that for the next section, the chairperson pro tem.
Kristen, can I just stop for a moment, being that we brought that up? And thank you, John, for that information. So basically, we have a little bit of leeway here or freedom. So in the case, and I know you talked about the press, but let's just say, for an example, we wanted to update the CSDE or update, present to the Board of Education. That would mean that the chairperson or the designate would be able to do that. And I think that that's appropriate, that the chairperson's designate could do that, right? But I don't know that the designate has to be specifically the vice chair, and it doesn't say that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I do agree with that statement, and I do believe that the chair person can say, all right, maybe we can do this on a rotating basis, because we may need to update or present or go to other stakeholder meetings, basically, and to share where we are at as a committee. So just wanted to bring that up for discussion. If there's see if there's consensus on that.
So let's see.
I think the way Kristen you said it made a bit more like it made sense to me in that to speak on behalf of like the one voice of the board would be the chair or a chair designee. But giving an update, Catherine, like the increasing teacher diversity council had asked for like, oh, an update. You all met. So we have a meeting this week and they wanted an update on the board on like what happened in the first meeting. And I can give that update as the representative, but not speak as like for the board, correct? That's how I understood you said it, Kristen, but I'm on Catherine, but maybe you're saying like, no, if we like give an update, it should be by a designee or the chair.
Oh, you're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up for interpretation, right? So, somebody brought up the case of the press, right? So whatever would go out public, obviously we want to make sure that it was an approved message, right? Because I might have a different interpretation of what's happening at the board. So I'm just kind of bringing this up. Do we want to tease that apart, unpack it a little bit, or are we okay to say? I mean, for AACTE, I go and we present monthly, and we all take a turn updating where we're at and what our requests are, et cetera, et cetera. We submit written statement in advance. So I'm just wondering, in light of the fact that, let's say we're not talking about the press, can we have other individuals represent as the chairperson's designate? Or
I don't think, because all of us are, we're all appointed to this committee by other agencies. I don't think that this prohibits us from giving updates to those other groups, right? I think this says that, the chairperson is the one that when a public statement has to be made, that they're the one authorized to do so. So like, me as not the chair of this committee would not be able to speak publicly and say that the board is doing this, but I could speak privately to other organizations and say like, oh yeah, the update is, we talked about these items, but I am not like the spokesperson. I think this is more identifying who's the spokesperson for the board.
You may want to consider some additional language. I'll just add that in. Since these questions have come up, you can always add, again, going back to the fact that we're working off of sort of a state template, that template was only offered for informational purposes as sort of an example to look over. Yeah. You can deviate in whatever way the board deems appropriate. So you can, add things, subtract, edit, revise. So if you feel that it needs more clarifying language about who's authorized to speak when, you might consider doing that.
Right. So if you go to, let's say if we go to present to the board, that is a public board and that would be a public session. So, and that would mean if the chairperson or the vice chair is not available, that would mean that, is that when we're talking about publicly, is that what we're talking about? So I know I feel like it's splitting hairs a little, but I do think we need to unpack it just a bit.
I think if the words for the board versus shall the person authorized to speak publicly on behalf of the board, then that kind of might capture a bit more, Kristen, the sole the representative. It doesn't mean that a member of the board can't speak publicly about like their membership or their experience on the board or information that they're getting, because that's all public access anyway. But as a member, I can't represent, like the only person that can represent the full view of the board and on behalf of the board would be the chair or the chair's designee.
Yeah, so it would be changing.
Do we need to put like for an example when speaking to the press or testifying or something like that?
Because I would hope that we would, as members, we would testify. That is public. Like as members, we could speak to the press. That is public, but we're speaking as a member, not as the voice of the board in the entirety.
So it looks like we're suggesting the change for the board to on behalf of the board, which I think that makes sense and kind of like clarifies that it's different than, you know, being a member of the board speaking about their experience on the board.
Right. I'm glad, Catherine, you pushed on that because it's true. It's like you can speak publicly. It's not about the public. It's like who is the voice that represents the board in totality, the work of the board in totality versus like one member's experience on the board.
You're absolutely right, Rebecca. And I do think that official spokesperson or something like that could help strengthen this piece.
I'm all for official spokesperson.
Shall be the official spokesperson.
Or like it shall the person authorized to speak publicly on behalf of the board as the official spokesperson. Then you're doubling it up.
Okay. 1 second. Person authorized publicly. As the there we go. All right. That sounds
so then
more
you can
clear.
probably just take out the word publicly altogether. Shall the person sorry, this is the like high school English teacher in me right now coming out. Shall be the person authorized to speak as the official spokesperson on behalf of the board.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right, that looks good. We took out the case hearings. We had the vice chair. Okay, so chairperson pro tem. I was thinking we still need to keep this language because if for some reason both the chair and vice chair are absent, like some, I don't know, internet is lost or something like that, then all the members who would be present at that meeting elect a temporary chairperson who performs the duty of the chair. Is that all good? So this question for the administrator of the board, I didn't know if we should include this person as part of our bylaws because they're not a member of the board, but they are brought up in the law. They do have roles with regard to us, and they do have roles with regards to how we run our meetings because they're going to be doing the agendas, preparing the minutes, coordinating the meetings. They're going to be doing all these things on behalf of our organization, our board. So I was thinking that the administrator of the board should be included in the bylaws. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I agree. This is Catherine. I agree. It's in the statute and it would make sense. And if we all disappear, right, it provides a conceptualization for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
I support that.
Wonderful. All right, so I replaced commissioner with administrator, and they're essentially doing all the roles that a secretary in other organizations would do. So our secretary like helps to set meeting dates, does agendas, minutes, coordinates meetings, books their locations. So what I added in here, this is actually the wording of their job description from the opening that's on the CSDE website, but it also includes a reference to the Public Act because the Public Act lists some of the things that they should do, but it doesn't spell out all of how that's coordinated. So between this paragraph and these bullet points, I think that they probably replicate each other. I don't know if both the paragraph and the bullet points are necessary.
I appreciate the bullet points because they are much more specific and concrete in the actions. But I could go either way. You could keep the paragraph or the bullet points.
And one of the things I would worry about is that the purple that's highlighted right now, that's what the person thinks they're being hired for. So in the paragraph, it says like, shall prepare such routine business for presentation to the board as may be necessary or advisable. I don't know if we want to add that one specifically in, because I mean, it is going to be helpful if CPRL is going to do like a quick overview of the laws, and that doesn't get covered in bullets 1 through 5, but it gets covered in the paragraph. I think it's tricky because if we keep this in, it's saying what the job is of someone who's going to be working with us, but it's not like our employee. I don't know. It's strange.
I also think the bulleted part. Well, did you say both were compiled based on what was put in the bill?
So the bullets come from the job description. The paragraph mostly comes from the State Board of Ed. So we don't have to keep that at all. That's something we could axe, just like some of the other things that are struck out.
But I do like the fact that, because I will tell you, there really is a gap when you don't have someone doing those functions, and it's record all acts. I don't know that we're going to, acts is the appropriate term there. Rebecca can help me with that one. But, record all acts of the board and certify the same shall be the custodian of records and papers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily articulated. I mean, draft agenda and draft minutes, that's not necessarily the same thing. Like, who's going to have that repository and hold all of that and provide access to it? I think that, and this is just my opinion, I'll go either way. I'll go with the consensus. I think that some kind of language, that narrative that leaves some of the components of that paragraph, along with the delineated job function roles, might be the best way to go here.
All right. Yeah, because they're two different lists, right? And we kind of want them to do all of them. Would it make sense to break this up like make just one big list? Because
let's try that.
Right? So we would want them to record all acts. And I think acts does actually make sense here because it's considered an act of a board whenever they have agreed on a motion. So recall all acts of the board and certify the same. Custodian of records and papers. Prepare routine business for presentation. Shall publish. I don't think they have to do this. Shall compile and publish under the direction of the board all regulations and acts which may be required, because we're not going to be creating acts. We're going to be writing suggestions.
But what about old teacher certification regs? Let's say we're doing a deep dive and we're pulling them and we're looking at them. In that case, would they be pulling that language and disseminating that information for us to work on? So could that mean that? The other piece, and this might be for John, is, I mean, there's a job description here and it delineates what it is this person's going to do. Can we add to that list? I mean, we're saying that they should do something which maybe they're not hired to do. And I'm just saying, I mean, or is in the job description these other items assumed or just not delineated? I'm just.
Right. Well, the operative question here would be, did we pull the language, so the sort of omnibus one in number 4 that says shall perform such duties as the board prescribes, does that come from, because I don't have the job description with me, does that come from the job description, or does that come from the template, or?
The template.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. I think there's nothing really prohibiting adding in sort of the omnibus. So obviously they should be performing the duties that are identified in the job description. That's what they're being hired to do. That's why they're a state employee. But beyond that, since they're sort of acting as not a member of this board, but an administrator to the board anyway, I don't see anything that would prohibit adding additional things onto that job description. Especially if you do it in sort of the omnibus language with, such other duties as the board may prescribe.
Yes, that makes sense. So maybe I take the purple highlight, move it to the bottom of the section, and then just make this one big list.
Given the timing of that, we don't have one yet. I would. So the establishing the board bylaws, I would actually take that out because those are going to be established before they really come on. And I would leave in the all the regulations and acts in the way that you said, Kristen, like acts of the board, but regulations in terms of our recommendations may be like regulatory recommendations. And so therefore to keep a kind of a catalog and compile and publish that we would need them to be able to do that.
All right, I think that all looks good. So I think you're right. Take out 6 and then keep 4, because especially if the things that we're suggesting, those are going to be public documents. And if to make them public, someone has to publish them. All right, so I think that looks good. Do we want to do, because this is a big list of 8 things right now, do we want to do just a quick run through and make sure the 8 things all make sense? Okay. So record all acts of the board and certify the same. Shall be the custodian of records and papers of the board. Shall prepare such routine business for presentation to the board as may be necessary or advisable. Shall compile and publish under the direction of the board all regulations and acts which may be required. Coordinate the establishment of the 16-member board. Draft agendas and prepare meeting minutes. Coordinate meetings and public comment. Collaboratively work with the liaison to the State Board of Education. Do we have a liaison to the State Board of Education? Chloe is nodding. Is that
Yeah, Aldith Dewar is the liaison. She coordinates pretty much everything.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the woman who takes the minutes. If anyone has been to a state board meeting, she's usually in the corner at a table typing away.
Typing furiously.
Yeah. So she's been and we sit next to each other. So I haven't had to coordinate much except to just ask her questions. But yes.
All right.
I also put the job description in the chat if anyone wanted to just look at it for the administrator, just because, Kristen, I think I only sent it to you individually, so.
Mhm. Yes. That, and I had it as a link in my comments, but you guys can't see my comments, so that's not super helpful. Okay. So anything else under section 3, the administrator of the board? Cool. Okay, so for committees, we don't have a finance or audit or budget. So I propose we say there's no standing committees for now, and if we need a standing committee later, then we can obviously vote those into effect later. We have this subcommittee for bylaws, but that's really just temporary to get this job done at the beginning of, our board's tasks, to make sure that we're running with like rules that are known in advance, right? What are your thoughts on standing committees?
I support not having standing committees at this time, given the work we're doing right now that looks different in the future. So, and the statement about ad hoc committees, this would be like an ad hoc committee, like at the discretion of the chair. So I think this, like, we are showing what fits within this model as of now. I support the writing here.
This is Catherine. I agree.
All right. Yeah, because I didn't think of any standing committees that we needed. I know it's short-sighted, but like we have this deadline coming up at the end of January for our first item. For now, I don't think breaking it up into smaller committees will be necessarily helpful, but I could see a time in the future where maybe we wanted to do like a standing committee on like diversity and equity and inclusion, and making sure that like we're representing all voices. Maybe that's a thing that we come to in the future.
Yeah, I could see potentially, especially as things splinter off around like EPP requirements and like a special education, like the cross, like there's certain, I can imagine ECE, there's some like really focused areas.
Yeah.
So then that committee could do the work and then bring it back to the whole. I see that in the future, but I agree, Kristen, right now, the togetherness is better.
All right. So any other ideas about committees? All right. So we're on to Article 3, board procedures. So all the text that's there in purple right now, so I'm highlighting it. This is all from kind of like the State Board of Education template, but it also matches Robert's Rules of Orders pretty closely. So any provision may be suspended at a meeting by a board. So it's called a vote to suspend the rules, and it would be for a specific purpose. So, for instance, we had to vote to suspend the rules at like a national NEA meeting because they needed to vote on the budget on day 1 instead of day 4. So they voted to suspend the rules because something came up and it was, for a specified purpose. This sentence, provisions of the bylaws incorporating compulsory statutory provisions for like a quorum and designated parliamentary authority may not be suspended. So you couldn't suspend the rules to say that 3 votes makes an act of the board. It would have to always be a quorum.
Is there a way to put that into more accessible language for like more people to have access to? I recognize that the language in which it's being used, parliamentary authority, is like closest to Robert's Rules, but what are thoughts about writing it in a more accessible way.
I'm trying to think of a more accessible way to write this. Because if it means the same thing, but more people could access it.
Yeah. Let me hold on. I think I had some notes. I literally I ran it through AI. I was
Isn't
like,
it
what?
great?
Make this like hold on.
Yeah.
I will also add that, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, we'll be recording these and uploading them. So this discussion of this, when we like talk as a whole board, will be on record as well. So that's just, I think that's just worth mentioning if someone were to listen or go back and try to understand a little better. It might make it a little easier hearing one of the board members speak about what that actually means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like for negotiating a contract, intent matters. So if wording is ever unclear or the parties disagree on what the wording means, if someone has notes about what the intent means, or in this case, we have a recording of what we're taking this sentence to mean, then that's actually a support from a legal perspective because that you know the intent of the language. We can make it more accessible anyways. I don't see why not. If it means the same thing, but more people can understand the sentence. So
Well, the way in which you just explained it, you were like was more accessible. And so how can we take the way I can't edit it? So what would be if we were to edit based on how you were like, this is kind of meaning such and such. What would that look like?
I'm trying to think of what that might sound like. So provisions. Do we have any problem with the sentence right before it? Suspension of the bylaws shall be for a specified purpose.
I have no problem with that.
I think that's fine.
Okay, so it's this next like big long sentence that we can break down a little bit. So
I dropped a version of it that might be a little bit simpler, but I'm not sure that it encompasses all that the meaning of the sentence has.
Oh, I like that. So in the chat, Jen wrote, the rules in the bylaws that are required by law, as well as those about having a quorum and choosing a parliamentary authority, cannot be suspended. I'm going to copy.
That is definitely increasing the understanding, I believe.
And I think it covers all three things. So it's saying compulsory statutory provisions, that's required by law, constitution of a quorum, that's right here, and designation of parliamentary authority is here. I'm fine with replacing this sentence with the new proposed one.
Some great commas, Jen, make a big difference.
Yeah. All right, so if we're good with this, it would now read this in red. And I wouldn't want to like put in any examples because that would make like the text much longer without necessarily like touching on the issue for which it arises. But I'm trying to think of other times where we've ever suspended bylaws, and it's always been for things like this agenda needs to go out of order. Oh, we suspended the bylaws once so that we could vote electronically during COVID, you know? All right. How are we feeling about the the highlighted language. Good, good. Nice. Okay, section 1. That's a number change because they had it in Roman numerals for section 1, but not for any of the following sections. So I changed that. I highlighted the 9-12 thing because we had talked about as a board meeting monthly. Then I went through the law and I could not find any mention that our meeting must be monthly. I might have missed it, but if we were talking about how we intend to meet monthly, that might not be necessary in the future because after 2026, there's only one task that the board annually has to do.
I can just jump in. There is no requirement about how often the board meets. So.
Okay, so the 9 was the language from the template. We had been talking about 12, but having additional meetings is not a problem. So do we want to just leave it as 9? And on years where we have to do more meetings, we can always make more meetings.
Could we put 9 or as needed or 12 or as needed?
Or could we put 1 and 2 together and not indicate a number, and then it just becomes, it's not special meetings, it's just that meetings will be held on call of the chairperson.
We could do that. Okay, so shall hold. Oh, you're thinking combine the special meeting?
I guess I'm just not clear what the difference for this particular board between a special meeting versus a
So a
meeting.
special
So
meeting.
Maybe, yeah.
Right, because normally like a Board of Education would meet twice monthly and a special meeting would be convened for some exigent thing that is occurring right now that they have to address, like, I don't know, a soccer team conflict or something like that. So we don't have to have regular monthly meetings. I don't know if we can combine them because I highlighted this section in my notes. So my question for that was, so this section 1-225 of Connecticut General Statutes, it says that public boards must have at least one meeting accessible to the public during evening hours. And since we count as a public board, I think we do have to follow that section.
Well, then I definitely would support with Jen's recommendation about putting the number as needed and just adding the language as needed.
Okay. So
I still need special meetings. I don't.
Right. So I mean, another.
Just Kristen, I just want to jump in because you changed it from 9 to 12 meetings. I will tell you that in my experience collaborating with CSDE on new programs, certain members and certain entities do not meet during the summer months. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that's where the 9 came from.
It could be.
John has his hand up.
Yeah, folks, yeah. I'll just jump in. So that's statute 1-225. That's part of the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. That particular statute only applies to government agencies. So not to board. So this is not a government agency. It is a board, and it's arranged pursuant to statute. So it's public in that sense. There's public participation, but it's not subject to that particular requirement.
Perfect. That's one of the things I was confused about because I was reading through it and was like, this could be us. So we don't need the evening hours. I had only put in 12 because people during our last meeting were saying monthly. So let's take that out. We don't need that to be 12. The The template
John,
still,
can I just ask a question? So John, does that section 1-225, is that the language of the hold at least regular monthly meetings? Is that piece of it? Because it looks like it's one.
Yeah,
the,
correct.
right, so
Yeah,
I took
it's
the, oh, you go, you got it.
so yes, the monthly requirement comes from that statute. Or it comes from the broader statute, I should say, which is FOIA, which is a group of statutes. But 1-225 specifically has to do with the public nature of agency meetings and notice for meetings and things of that nature. So.
Yeah, and I took that wording with the regular monthly meetings from the template, so we're not beholden to keep it. Okay. We could say the board shall hold regular meetings. Regular meaning in this case, like, you know, we're planning periodic, regularly occurring meetings, but we're not specifying at what frequency. Would that make sense?
I think that makes sense, and I think that at this point we might need we have a heavy lift by the end of the month.
We do.
So we might need to meet more than just a monthly meeting in order to get that work done, especially in the shorter term. And to Rebecca's point, and I think it was Rebecca, right, after 2026, when this work is done, a regular meeting could be quarterly.
Yeah. So we're saying we can commit to having regularly scheduled meetings, but not what the schedule is. And then if we need to do more, then we have the language from the special meetings. So if we get to January 16th and we're like, all right, we're not going to finish this by the 30th, we need to meet again, then we call a special meeting in addition to our regular meeting. So let's have one final look at sections 1 and 2. So regular board meetings and special meetings.
So would the special meeting, remind me, what would the difference between that for our group be?
So let's say in 2028, we've agreed that regular meetings are quarterly because we only have to do one task this year. And then all of a sudden, you know, some unforeseen circumstance comes up. There's like a problem that has started occurring with like teachers being certified in other states coming to our state, and we need to have a special meeting outside of those regular ones to deal with something that's like timely and unpredicted. So a special meeting would normally be like to deal with a specific issue outside of a regularly scheduled time.
Got it. All right, I support the way it's written.
All right. I took out everything about organizational meeting of the board because that I think we've already done, right? We've elected the chair, we've elected the vice chair. But this is all about like when, I guess where we could keep this would be our terms are 3-year terms. We might keep the section about organizational meeting of the board when 3 years from now, a whole different board is going to take office and they have to re-elect a new chair and vice chair. So let me unstrike through this so it's easier to read for everyone. This wording we'd probably want to look at, but let's say 4 or 3 years from now, a whole new set of board members is coming on. They hold an organizational meeting to elect the new chair and vice chair. We don't really need a biennial meeting Jen asks, do we include the 3-year term in our bylaws? We could do that. I think further up for appointment of board members, I didn't put the length of the term, but we could add that in. So under section 1, much farther up, it like lists everyone who's on this board, and based on like the law that gives us the authority. I don't think I put in how long our terms are. That might be a good addition. For this, maybe we could word this as like not later than, or how about at the first regular meeting of a newly appointed board, the chairperson shall conduct an organizational meeting of the board. Right? So then someday in a few years, we've got this new board. The chair pulls the board together. We vote on things. We appoint to standing committees. And we take out the wording of June 1st and biennial. So at the first regular meeting, of a newly appointed board, the language that was there before assumes the chairperson continues. But if
Would
we
it be, but can I just jump in there? So
absolutely.
Could we assume that the person who is going to be the administrator would serve as the chairperson, similar to what we did the first day? And then that person, then they would move into a temporary chair, because that was, maybe they would follow that model.
I like that. Because the administrator is the one that's going to be continuing.
Consistent,
They're
right.
the state employee that provides the consistency. So the administrator shall conduct an organizational meeting of the board. The first item of business shall be action on any proposed bylaw amendments. That's probably not a great first item of business for the new board. It should probably be electing a chairperson, which is what we did. So maybe something along the lines of the first item of business shall be electing a chairperson and vice chairperson, because the vice chairperson is required by law. So we might as well elect them at the same time. This last sentence was from the template, so we can keep this or not keep this. And I have no feelings either way. So the last sentence says, the board may elect a vice chairperson at this meeting, or by no later than the third meeting following its biennial organizational meeting.
Well, we don't have the biannual, so that could go.
Yeah.
And third meeting could put us out 3 months.
True.
Yeah.
Or if it's quarterly, 3/4 of a year. So I'm fine with just making that
should we, I know we took out on or after June 1st, but because in the particular legislation, it said like on or before, I think it was August 1st, we were supposed to do this. Should we have a set date in there that the administrator does do like the kind of turnaround? And I do think that might be helpful. I think it was August 1st. Or maybe that was when everybody was supposed to be like named.
It could be. I think so. There were a few things that I also put as questions that we can either discuss as a bylaws committee or a full board. So I can look into that and just find out what the date is. Because if it's in the statute, and we might as well put it in. Yeah. So
Right. We didn't have our first meeting. We started late, so we got a late start. So the 3-year cycle, but do we identify that date? Do we identify that date from fall? To move it to June, that doesn't seem to make much sense. August 1st, well, we weren't really appointed until August 1st, but we didn't have our first meeting up until when we had it. So
right, November.
But it should align with the academic year, however we work it. So either we go back to the fall or we fast forward to June. I'm okay with either one, but I think that it has to be in alignment with the academic year. That's just my thought.
Right. But I also want to check the law too.
Oh yeah, and alignment with the academic year or alignment with the when the legislative session begins. Because if we're making recommendations, based on that, I think that I think is why they put like June and other things, because to gear up. All the conversations are having before session starts. But we could also, we're pulling stuff out of legislative session in like the long term, and it's coming just to us. So then the academic year, Catherine, would then start to make. Then you want decisions made before before the summer even starts.
I agree. So then in the June, the session closes, but you want to do that work. I hear what you're saying. I don't know that June. I don't know that. I don't know. I just wanted to bring up the whole date piece. And
yeah,
we need a date. We just don't know which date it is, but we need a date.
Which date are we going to go with? And I hear what you're saying about the session. I think that, but how much of our work is going to need to move through? Maybe all of our work has to move through committee, right? So that might be a question for John.
Again, that would be based on what you decide needs to go through committee. That's something to spell out in the bylaws, or for the chairperson to decide specifically.
Right. So, Dr. Do you have like an example?
Did you say me? Did you ask me? I missed what you said. Were you talking? Did you say Catherine?
I said Dr. Rowe.
Do you have? No, please just call me Catherine. No, I wasn't sure if you said. I wasn't sure if that's what I heard.
Do you have like an example of?
I do. So are our recommendations for certification? Are those recommendations going to have to move through committee in order to become law? Is that?
I would think so.
Right. So then.
Well,
right.
Yeah. If you recall, there's the provision in the statute that talks about recommendations, sort of the bilateral nature of the recommendations, how they go to and from the State Board of Education.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in that sense.
Right. So we don't want to do this. If we want to do because of the laborious work and the length, sometimes these things take a while to go through. So I'm wondering, doing it in conjunction with the legislative calendar we might need to do this work and begin this work earlier before the session starts. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that might make starting it the beginning of the academic year, or just keeping it aligned with I don't know how many people are going to be available August 1st. That's going to be a problem pragmatically. Just my idea. I'm going to go with the consensus, but I just wanted to add.
I also think that because there is a legal component, I want to make sure that this lines up with the law also. So I put in my notes, which you can't see for some reason. I highlighted June 1st and put in a note for check for alignment with law, the academic year or legislative session. We can put that in as a date that we come up with as either a full board or come back to. That way we're not recommending something that like in the end we're going to have to revise anyways. What do people think about just leaving this as like placeholder date?
I think placeholder date is fine.
Um, yeah, because I think it makes sense to align it with the academic year because people, they might be away doing research in the summer, they might be doing other things. So maybe like September 1st, as long as it aligns with the law, something like that. That should give us the leeway before the legislative session begins in January. We can leave it in as a placeholder for now and then come back to it.
I also would add that, so like, for example, this legislative session that's coming up starting in January, the proposals from agencies for OPM to review and approve were due October 1st. So it starts very early. I don't know what the like protocol is for like the state board getting recommendations for the legislative proposals, but those are started like really early. So just something to think about. And in a budget year, so odd numbered years, it starts January, and then even years, it starts in February, but it's a short session. So you have less time to get the same amount done.
I just
See, this is going to be this is recommendations to the talent office because the legislation has already approved that all the regulations are coming down by 2026. And what this board isn't doing is hopefully like not putting everything back into committee and legislation. It's like actually we are the policy makers and like so that it can be faster so we're not in that laborious like cycle. So with that in mind and knowing the like this 2026 date is coming, I actually think that September date does work. Doesn't mean that there won't be things that we need to go through committee, but the hopes of this board is to get less in committee.
Oh, Rebecca, I love what you just said. And then, if we need to have a special meeting in the summer, right, to do things, then we can. But I mean, quite honestly, I love the date. I support that 100%. And quite honestly, when I think about this, we have a timeline that may or may not align with the legislative sessions right now. So right now, I don't want to say that it's irrelevant. It will become more relevant in the future, right? But I think like here and now, it's not. So thank you for entertaining my ideas. So thanks.
Yeah. So if you want, we can put in September 1st, and I will just make sure that that lines up with, make sure it lines up with the law. That way we're not putting in a date when it says like, if it said we were supposed to start in May, that we're making it all formal, making it all official. So I put in a little note for myself on that one. Any other things with section 3? Was there any other thing for the organizational meeting of the board? Do we want to leave that that at least the bylaws should be looked at in the first organizational meeting? Right, because we can just put it in as instead of the first item of business, just be reviewing the bylaws. And if proposed amendments come up then, that would make sense. So maybe like the bylaws shall be reviewed at this meeting so that people are aware of like the parliamentary procedure and all the internal practices of the board.
Mhm.
So the bylaws shall be reviewed at this meeting. Okay. Okay, so for agenda, so I currently have in the agenda shall be prepared by the chairperson and vice chairperson. Members may submit to the chairperson items to be included on the agenda. Such items shall be on the agenda if received not less than 10 days prior to the date of the meeting upon which the item is to be included. That is a pretty standard thing.
Given the, once again, like the amount of meetings we'll be having up front, is 10 days why that might be standard like long term. I feel like should we start with a smaller, like 5 days, 7 days?
So the chair can always put your item in. So what it's saying is that if it's received early enough, it shall be included. But the chair can always just put any requested items on anyways.
Got it. Okay.
But isn't the administrator supposed to prepare the agenda?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, we should probably put the administrator on there too.
Yeah, so the administrator for the state board prepares it, but it's with the like recommendations from the commissioner and, well, the commissioner is the administrator for the state board, but Aldith prepares it. Yeah.
We could do the agenda shall be prepared by the chairperson, vice chairperson, and administrator, because they or maybe that the administrator is doing it at the direction of the chair and vice chair.
Yeah, with input or direction or, yeah.
Okay, so the agenda shall be prepared by the administrator in consultation with the chair and vice chair. All right, we can do that. Guys, this is going so smoothly. Thank you for...
How does that work if the vice chair is not available? For example, we're having a meeting tomorrow, I think it is, to set the agenda, and the vice chair will not be available.
I feel like that's less of a problem than the chair not being available. Right? Because the...
Putting in consultation with the chair and the vice chair.
So it's not an and or between vice chairs. It's saying like, yes, vice chair and like it's, and if available, the chairperson and when available, vice chair. Maybe that's a good point.
Well, part of the agenda is really right now driven by the statute, right? So
yes.
It's being informed by the timeline. So right now the administrator is doing it, but in consultation with the chairperson. Is the vice chairperson? I mean, isn't it just the chairperson? Is the vice chairperson? Isn't it or would it be? I think Rebecca just said or. Because
I would say
but then go ahead.
I would say without the vice chair, because the job description for the vice chair states that in the case that the chairperson is not available, the vice chair would then take on responsibilities for. So I would say without the chairperson at this time, because their job description already states that they would take over that responsibility should the chair not be available.
Agreed.
Makes sense. Okay, so it now reads, the agenda shall be prepared by the administrator in consultation with the chairperson. And then the bit about members submitting items. All right. Does this section look good? Okay, so we've already adopted Robert's Rules of Order. So that's section 4/5.
Can I add something in really quickly? Sorry.
Sure.
Chloe, could you clarify from the notes of our last meeting, was there a discussion on sending out an agenda in advance of the meeting and how many days? I feel like there was some discussion around that. And I don't know if we need to add that into our bylaws or not.
Do you mean publicly? Or
Yes, the last
Yeah.
meeting that we had, yeah.
like I'm just clarifying. So sending out an agenda like for public consumption, like on the website. That's what you're asking,
To
correct?
the committee or publicly, yes.
Yeah, so all that's required is 24 hours in advance at the absolute latest. But if we have an agenda, we put it up on the website. So the only requirement is 24 hours, but I think at least with like the state board and what I've been trying to mimic is trying for a week. Obviously this next agenda, because of the holiday last week, it was difficult to set it up a week in advance, but it's only 24 hours to my knowledge. John, is that correct? Do you know?
That's the prep.
Oh, John, you got muted.
You muted yourself.
Sorry. I think that's what had been sort of discussed internally, yeah. But again, I don't think this board is not subject to the same requirements as FOIA, because again, it's not an agency board meeting. But I think it would make sense certainly for 24 hours, but it's not a lengthier period of time than that.
Perfect. So how about
Why don't we just leave it out and see if it comes up in conversation at the board meeting?
Also fine with that. Rebecca and Catherine, do you have a opinion either way, whether we should add in like how far in advance an agenda needs to be provided?
I know that.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I know with the state, when I usually look, it's usually about a week. I think that at this point, we have to. I think the 24-hour rule is fine. Shoot for a week and try to have it in minimally 24 hours in advance. That's just my thought. I do think, quite honestly, we have to kind of see where we are with the work that we're doing. So that's going to directly inform our agenda. I know that we all get busy, and I do know because right now I'm waiting for the agenda. I'm waiting for the agenda because I might make public comment on Wednesday. Gotcha. So it is something that I think the public does look for. So I say, if you're going to ask me, I'd say shoot for the week, minimally 24 hours.
Okay. So, yeah. So in which case, it makes sense that we put in a statement saying the minimum, and if we do better, that would be excellent. So something along the lines of the agenda will be available publicly 24 hours in advance of a regular meeting or any meeting. Do we want to include special meetings here?
I just think meeting. I mean, I have to say that as somebody who attends a lot of committee meetings, it's really important for me to have the information ahead of time so I could do the prep work that I need to partake, right? So just
the board, right? I think that's fair. Let's see. So we had the agenda. Any other changes to the agenda section? Okay, parliamentary authority we've already done because we've agreed to do Robert's Rules of Order. For a quorum, that's a majority. That's Robert's Rules. The votes section, also majority. I think we could just leave this section untouched because it defines an action as being the majority of voting members and defines what it means to have those members be present.
I'm sorry, just with the amount of work that we have in front of us and the time, do we want to have the public comment or the public participation in the beginning of the meeting? And no disrespect to public participation, or do we want to have that more towards the end? Because we have a heavy lift. And it's wonderful. I mean, you really do want to have stakeholder buy-in, but I don't know if you've ever been to any of those board meetings.
Yes.
You could sit there a few hours listening to public comment.
Yes. So all I did in this section was cross off items that I thought were like financial matters or report of the commissioner, things that may not be necessary. And then my notes just are highlighted and says, let's discuss. So we can put whatever we think is reasonable here.
We had public comment at the end of the first meeting, and I don't think that was an issue.
I think public participation is really important, and I agree putting it to close out the meeting so that the public even has an opportunity to like hear and be able to respond to what we are sharing is really helpful.
All right. So I did, if we scroll up a little bit, so it breaks over 2 pages. So I put public participation at the bottom. So we have call to order, consideration of minutes. Instead of reports of the commissioner, do we want reports of the chairperson? I assume the chair in this body isn't going to be doing anything like significantly outside of our regular meetings, you know? When a town committee has like a report of the mayor does significant things that are outside the meeting. But for us, I don't see the chairs necessarily doing like tons of work on her own and then bringing it back to report to us, you know? Jen, do you feel like you need to do a report at every meeting?
I don't think at every meeting, no, but if I have to report to the board and any follow-ups, I mean, it's public, so people can honestly watch it. Otherwise, I could just come back and give some notes on that, but I don't think it would be required at every meeting.
So then if we went from call to order, consideration of meeting minutes, items requiring like action, then as the chair, you could determine like, oh, I want to report out on this action that was taken or that we need to do. That kind of would, that you're a report if need be, you could fall into that one. Okay. And
that
then
makes sense.
Okay, cool.
So in the template, it had both report of the commissioner and report of the chair. So if we're saying no, we don't need it. The report of the chair can just fall under items requiring action. I think that makes sense.
But it also maybe we can have an announcement section, and then
Sure.
if there's anything that's coming from the commissioner or from the town office, it could be brought to the committee at large through Jen.
That makes sense. And that should probably go towards the beginning, just because if it's something that later is going to shape whatever it is we're doing that day. So announcements, and it would go through the chair of the committee, chair of the board. I had a question under consent agenda. That's not a thing that I'm super familiar with. So what are people's thoughts on this?
To me, I think an example would be if we came together like this bylaw subcommittee and we were coming in and we had presented these bylaws in advance, and it would be like we'd come in, does anybody want to discuss these? And everybody's like, nope, like, and it's just consent and moved forward. I don't see, I mean, you can also just very quickly go through like the Roberts like rules and say up for discussion. And if nobody wants to discuss and keep it moving. And so I don't see a real big need for a consent agenda versus items for discussion, but.
And we also have committee reports. So
right.
when we go back, this would fall under committee reports, and we don't really need a consent agenda on that.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's like for, if I think about the Board of Education, it's like the meeting before the meeting. Like they all agreed to, like you agree on something and it just went to consent. And we're not doing that.
Okay, so it's a little choppy because we have all like the crossouts and things, but I currently have as the order of business being call to order, consideration of minutes, announcements, items requiring action, items for discussion, committee reports, public participation. Do we want to move committee reports up under announcements just so that like if the committee has done work and it's going to inform all these later discussions? Okay. I will move that up here. Okay, and I'll fix all the numbering silliness later for some reason. I don't know what order that looks like. Those numbers.
Can I just ask just a question on? So we are going to consider the minutes. I would infer that means that we're going to approve the minutes, but should we just say we're going to approve the minutes, or are we just going to consider them and they'll be accepted by consensus? How are we go? What's the procedure going to be? Because I think that's the purpose of the bylaws.
Yeah. My take on the word consideration in this case means that we would vote to approve the minutes there. John?
Typically, yes, it would be, and usually it's not even written as consideration, it would be review.
Okay. And then it's implied from either the word review or the word consideration that that's where we would vote to accept them. Okay. Do you want me to change it to review?
Jen has her hand up, so okay.
Oh, I can't see anything. Sorry. Jen, okay. Your name tag is going over your hand. Sorry. Yeah.
I've never seen consideration of the minutes. I've seen approval, review. So if that's what, I'll go with the consensus. I just wanted to confirm that we were approving them at that stage.
Yeah, I think review of the minutes is good.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we're reviewing the minutes, announcements, committee reports, items requiring action, items for discussion, items, and then public participation. All right, so then the last sentence, the order of the agenda may be set at the discretion of the chairperson, and I changed it to vice chairperson as circumstances require. So if something needs to be done out of order, maybe someone on a committee needs to make a report early because they have to leave for some reason. Is everyone good on that last sentence? Order of the agenda set by the chairperson and vice chairperson? All right. So I left the section about public participation pretty much untouched. So this is basically straight from the template. I didn't see anything that stood out significantly. Do we want, it says the chairperson shall allow a reasonable time, and it gives an example of 3 minutes. I think because it's written as vague, like it doesn't specify what that amount of time is, we could keep it at 3 minutes, but if we see like 20 people are there, we could limit it to 2 minutes. Does that make sense to leave it as worded? I also highlighted the sentence at the bottom. So inquiries requiring detailed responses shall be referred to the chairperson who shall respond within a reasonable period of time. I don't know if that's a normal thing for other boards. I know I don't have it in the other like sets of bylaws I'm more familiar with, but is that something we want? The chairperson would then be, beholden to members of the public to respond within a reasonable period of time. I don't know if that's normal or reasonable. Like, what are our thoughts here?
I think given that everything is going to be online and public, it doesn't, I would not have that as an additional action, particularly in this first like year or two. I wouldn't.
Thank you.
Unless I was like, Jen, unless you really want it, but just given the amount of information and like there's
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between the state board of ed who has like employees, they might be answering something, to an employee, whereas we're more I don't know the right word for it, but
I know. I
don't
know it. We're right. So you don't think we're as consequential, maybe, like to the public, but I would argue, I think, yeah, I think take it out. Absolutely agree because we don't really know what stakeholders are going to be interested in, going to be asking for a response to their
right.
comment. We don't know.
And let's say like something happens where there's 8 different groups that show up at a specific meeting. I don't want to tie the chair into responding to all these other inquiries as opposed to like getting our actual work done. Okay, so that's not there. I left in the thing about executive session. So in case I can't think of an example where we might need to, but I think leaving this section gives us the right to go to executive session if necessary. What are people's thoughts on that?
I agree. I think it should stay just in case, because again, we don't really know what's going to happen, what's going to come up. And this would give us at least options.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so next up we have items requiring action. So these shall be submitted in writing and received by board members at least 7 days prior to the time action is expected, except in cases of emergency. I don't know if we want to be that formal. If our goal is together, we have to look at this 150-page document with all of its attached most wordy laws, then maybe we can't put every single thing imaginable on the agenda 7 days in advance. I don't know if we want to keep this or reword it.
That makes me think of the actual agenda. Because we might want to move items for discussion above like items requiring action, because the discussion might result in things that we can take action on at that moment. And I think this assumes that no action is taken until like the next right. And like there's plenty of action given like that would need to be taken within the meeting space and time.
Mm-hmm.
So then items requiring action to have that much advance notice when action could be taken within the meeting seems to not match up.
I agree with you, Rebecca. I'm wondering if there's a way to denote old business or continuation of discussion, and then new business. So let's say we're finished unpacking one certification requirement and then we're moving into another. Just an idea, not that we need to do anything like that, but if we're going to delineate things, I have a cold, so I'm real sorry about that.
You're good.
Just an idea. If you want to leave it the other way, I don't want to we don't have to backtrack. Just wanted to point that out.
I mean, we could say something like shall be submitted in writing and don't give a timeline. So, but then that would still kind of prevent us from taking action on a thing that comes up in that meeting. So if we have a presentation from a committee, then we discuss all the things that the committee brings to light. This, as currently written, would prevent us from taking any action on those things we just discussed and would make our business much, much longer. Could we take this out? The timeline and having it be done in writing. And this is more of a question for whether we can or not.
I mean, we can take it out. It's up to us. The wondering it, I mean, I'm like, yeah, shouldn't we just take it out? And I'm like, I'm trying to think of what are the unintended consequences if we take it out? I can't think of one, but maybe at this stage. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree with you, Rebecca. We don't know. This is like the unknown. So we have to think that whoever developed these bylaws would develop them maybe with more information for a larger board. And we don't really know, like to your point, what constituents or what folks are going to come forward and in response to our work have, want to be heard. And then how do we react, or what do we react in that situation? So I don't think it's going to hurt anyone or anything by leaving it in there, but it may be a safeguard.
I think.
But maybe, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think the leaving it in there is going to make it a lot harder for us to meet these deadlines that are coming up. What I'm kind of in two minds about, and why I think it's kind of conflicting, is that we want this board to be efficient and get our work done and be able to make these recommendations and get them into law as soon as possible. But at the same time, as you were saying, like, what if both representatives from CAPS are absent one day, and then we don't get the superintendent's view on how this policy that we've agreed on is going to impact superintendents? So I'm conflicted on this one.
Right.
Is there a way that we could make it less strict? So like items requiring action shall be reviewed or received and reviewed by board members. I mean, they could be within a timely manner, or it can, like, at the discretion of, just kind of just opening it up a little where it doesn't tie us down, where we can't take action within a meeting, but it also, if we realize like, oh, we actually need more guidance, then we didn't totally take it out and we're like, oh, come back to this and put more guidance on it.
Yeah, I think that this here is something that we would have to be forward thinking, because right now we're not going to be, theoretically, we would not be getting any requests in writing to do anything, because everything that we're charged to do is in the statute, right? But that doesn't mean 3 years down the line that there is not going to be something submitted. So I agree with giving a little bit more flexibility to the board.
So I've changed the wording to say, items requiring action shall be submitted in writing and received by board members in a timely manner. In a timely manner, except in case of emergency. Though I can't really foretell any certification emergencies. But maybe leave that in there. Maybe it's like the day before all of those other regulations expire and we need to put something into writing, so that might be an emergency. Any other changes for the items requiring action? So committee reports shall be presented to the board at the next regular meeting after a committee meeting has been held. That's pretty standard. Any thoughts on committee reports? All right. For minutes, I took this section as word for word from the template. That it's also a pretty standard. So actions taken by the board are recorded in its minutes. You can request that remarks are made as part of the minutes. The minutes will be printed with the agenda and included as the official record of the board, and minutes of committee meetings shall be made available to all members. Do those things all make sense? All right.
You can just a small note. That's going to be section 8.
Yes.
But
At some point,
you'll just go through the whole.
what I'll do is I'll make an extra copy of this and then make draft 2 with all our changes in there. So at that time, all the numbering should get fixed. The red and crossed outs will go away and it'll be one beautiful document. All right. Second to last one, functions of the board. I took this from the Public Act. So this is the timeline. And notice that the only one after 2026 that continues is number 5. I'm going to take out the section 10 because it's Public Act. So functions of the board include, and then these are our, this is in a lot less detail than the law states, because the law also gives kind of like the what we're focusing on. But this gives the presentables or deliverables, that's the word. This lists the deliverable things we must do, not necessarily the state of mind that is laid out in the law.
Should we keep that in, considering it might change after a year and all these deadlines have been met or passed?
So I think the reason I was thinking not to include all of the other language was that those are, it's more like the details. And so like once this January deadline is passed, there's not other things we're supposed to do with submitting a report,
I can support that. Keeping it this simple, knowing that like the bylaws are, yes, they're for the right now, but also the future, the July 1st, 2026 and thereafter, that all those details would no longer be needed.
Mm.
So it sounds like we'll keep them then as they're written there in red 1 through 5. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure all the formatting looks good. Right. So especially since this is going to list the functions of the board, it doesn't have to talk about like the details of what's in a specific report. But after that, there's a lot of strikeouts. So if you scroll all the way down, because we don't have a commissioner, those are the functions of the State Board of Education that are all crossed out. The last bit is the effective period. So the bylaws shall take effect upon adoption by the board and shall continue until modified or rescinded. And then we would hope that we would probably get this approved December 9th at the meeting, and then we still have the ability to make amendments to the bylaws by doing a 2/3 vote. All right, so any other things?
And just will say it again, I'm super appreciative, Kristen, of all the work that you did in advance of this. This is really good. I support the changes you've made and the changes we've made collectively here.
Oh, thank you so much.
I support what you just said, Rebecca. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you so much, Kristen. Thanks everyone, and thanks, John, for joining us. I appreciate everyone here, and it really is a pleasure working with you all.
Perfect. So minus the one date that we just have to double check, the September 1st date. If that works, we can just leave it. Then I would say that we should take action as a subcommittee and then be able to bring this back. And I can take care of presenting this to the board as a whole on December 9th. Okay, in my organization, chairs don't make motions.
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, motion to...
Motion to do what you just said, Kristen.
Move the bylaws from the subcommittee
Move the bylaws
to the full.
From the subcommittee to the full.
Okay.
I second it.
All right. So we have a motion from Rebecca, seconded by Jen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And with your permission, I'd like to record this as unanimous. All right. Thanks, everybody. No, that was best bylaws meeting ever. Thank you so much. I will now entertain a motion at the end of a meeting.
I'll motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I will second. Bye.
Perfect.
Have a
Good
great
night,
day.
everyone.
Thanks so
See you
much.
soon.
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.